This one's for all the managers and leaders out there. Remember flow? Remember when you were an individual contributor and you could get lost in a task for hours, coming up for air only infrequently and just focusing all of your energy on doing a single thing to the best of your ability? Remember how good that felt? Remember how much you could get done? Do you miss it? Do you feel like it's something that you used to have, but you just don't have anymore because your role now requires you to be available all hours of the day to the people that work for you, as well as the people above you who want to know what's going on? Well, you know something that feels kind of like flow? A meeting. If you have a good meeting, then you can get a little bit of that feeling of flow, of accomplishment from a meeting that gets something done. It's like you're extracting a little bit of that flow from all of the other people in the meeting. But of course, you can't guarantee it's going to be a good meeting. So maybe you should book a few more meetings just to hopefully get one in the day that gives you that feeling that you're missing, that to give you that flow that you're missing. But of course, you shouldn't do any of this. This is hopefully obvious that this is exactly the thing you shouldn't do. Unfortunately, your role now is not one that is going to necessarily give you a lot of opportunities for flow, and trying to emulate it with the incredibly poor substitute of a series of meetings is just destroying the flow of your team, and you're trading their legitimate flow for this poor photocopy that you get from a meeting. And it's not even real. Their feeling of flow is accomplishing something. A lot of times that meeting that you called, did it really need to happen? Couldn't it have been an email or a Slack thread? Your job now is to protect the flow state of the people in your team. And while that means that you don't get that same feeling anymore, in order to protect their flow, you need to be available when they need you, even though that is going to interrupt your own flow. And you can look for opportunities to carve out places where you can potentially regain some of that. And some of these are actually things that are probably good for your team as well. If you cluster all of your meetings together so that they're all in the morning or all on a few different days, and you get rid of all the unnecessary meetings, and you definitely get rid of those recurring meetings that have probably long outlived their usefulness, you'll have times within your day when you don't have any formal interruptions. Now, you should still keep yourself as available as possible in these times, but most of your team isn't going to be looking to interrupt you anyway because they want to enter into that flow state as well. So if you do a good job of clustering everything together, those times are going to at least be low interruption for you. And this is an opportunity for you to potentially find some places where you can maybe at least approach a flow state again. If you absolutely need to be able to get into this flow state, you can go further. You can actually isolate yourself temporarily from your team to give yourself that undivided time. My recommendation, my strong recommendation here is to not make yourself completely unavailable, but rather to just increase the amount of effort required to reach you. If you normally do most of your communication with your team through Slack, then maybe set yourself to some status that indicates that you don't want to be disturbed. But don't make it so that you can't be disturbed at all. You could even set your Slack to do not disturb, and then people will have to use a different channel to reach you if they truly need to do so. I would recommend against completely disconnecting yourself, because doing so is going to start to teach your team to work around you. So better to keep the channel open, just narrow it and increase the friction when you truly need that flow state. But don't be doing this all the time, because again, your role is now that of leader, of mentor, of guidance, more than it is of person who does work themselves. If you are a leader who is still an individual contributor as well, then you get that flow through the opportunities you have to still execute on your craft. If you're too far removed from that anymore because you've been a leader for so long, or you have lost the ability to work in whatever engine or tool set or piece of software that is being used, well, I would recommend that maybe take the opportunity given by some of these moments of time to maybe try to recapture a little bit of that. Ideally, a leader has at least reasonable familiarity with the tools that his team is using, because otherwise they can become disconnected from the decision-making process that goes on around those tools. But even if you can't, there are still places where flow is to be found, even if you're not directly contributing to the development of the game. In the crafting of vision decks, in the evaluation of other people's work, in the imagining of vision, in the imagining of systems. These are places where flow is still there to be found. Maybe not necessarily for hours and hours like you used to get, but it's still there. But again, ultimately, finding flow for yourself isn't your primary responsibility. The primary responsibility is to protect with everything you have the flow state of the people that work for you. And if that means you don't get the opportunity to enter into that state very often, well, that's what comes with the price of management, with the price of leadership. A special thanks to my members. They provide the resources this channel needs to keep running. If you are interested in becoming a member, there's a link down in the description. If you found this video interesting, give it a thumbs up. That will help YouTube understand that it's worth sharing. If you have a manager that needs to hear this, maybe write this on a piece of paper and slip it under their door. I will see you again soon. Thank you.